Something is happening inside African immigrant communities in America, and almost nobody is talking about it honestly. The issue is African women, I'm talking about the highly educated women, those that are professionally ambitious, and I would say culturally rooted, are increasingly choosing partners outside their ethnic communities. And the question is, who are the men they are walking away from? They are walking away from the exact men they grew up being told they were meant for. Now, before you type a single word in the comment section, this is not a takedown video. This isn't about African men are trash or African women are lost. This is a story about what happens when an entire identity system, one that is built over generation, one that is reinforced by culture, family, and tradition, collides head-on with the most powerful social accelerant on earth, America. So, stick around, because at the end of this particular video, you will understand why this is happening, what is really driving it, and why the answer is far more complicated and far more human than anyone on the internet is willing to admit. So don't go anywhere. In 1967, the year the Supreme Court struck down laws banning interracial marriages in Loving v. Virginia, 3% of all married couples in America were interracial or interethnic. By 2020, that number had climbed to 11%. That is not evolution. That is actually an absolute transformation, and African immigrant women are increasingly part of that shift. Now, I want you to understand something before we go further. African immigrants in the United States are not one group. They come from Nigeria, Ghana, Ethiopia, Kenya, Senegal, Ivory Coast, and dozens of other nations, each with distinct languages, religion, and cultural frameworks. When we say African women in this conversation, we are talking about a mix of different people, not a single type. But across this different group of people, researchers are finding the same patterns, the same pressure points, and the same fault lines. So the question is, what exactly is sitting at the center of it all? Well, it is a gap, right? And it is not a gap in love or a gap in values exactly, but a gap in how fast two people change when only one of them is being pulled by a force that the other one can't fully feel. I repeat it again. It is a gap in how fast two people change when only one of them is being pulled by a force that the other person can't fully feel. I know it sounds complicated, but that is why I made this video. I'm going to explain that gap to you. According to research published in the journal African Health Sciences, African immigrant women are among the most educated immigrant groups arriving in this country. We are talking about nurses, doctors, engineers, academics, and entrepreneurs. Yes, we are talking about women who arrive with credentials, professional ambitions, and a measure of financial independence they may never have fully exercised back home. So think about that for a moment. A woman leaves Lagos or Accra or Nairobi, a place where her ambition was real but possibly constrained by structures she couldn't control. She lands in America, she gets her license. Then she starts earning. She built her own social network. Then she discovered legal protection, workplace rights, and a cultural environment that for the first time in her life is actively telling her that her independence is not just acceptable, but it is also expected. Let that sink in. Now, what happens to the relationship she brought with her, or the relationship she was expected to build? Sociologists call what comes next acculturation. I know it's a big word, but it basically means the process by which immigrants adapt their values and behaviors to a new environment. And researchers is clear that acculturation does not happen at the same speed for everyone. It happens faster for people who are embedded in professional environments that reward assertiveness, independence, and equality. In other words, it happens faster for her than for him. And that is the gap. That is where the earthquakes starts. Now, I want to tell you about a hypothetical scenario, okay? But this scenario, according to researchers, it plays out in every single living rooms and kitchens across America every single day. So let's take, for instance, a couple immigrate from Ghana, both educated, both ambitious. Back home in Ghana, there was a clear, if sometimes unspoken, arrangement. She handles the home, he makes major decisions. Mind you, that arrangement wasn't malicious back home in Ghana. It was actually socially reinforced. Her mother did it. His father expected it. And the whole community scaffolded it. Then they arrive here in the United States of America. She starts a nursing job. She's working 9 shifts, maybe even managing a team and making real money. Her American colleagues treat her as equal. They expect her to speak up. They expect her to push back. And they expect her to advocate for herself. And slowly, not all at once, but surely, she starts speaking up and she starts pushing back. But he, as in the man, is still operating from the old script that was written back home in Ghana. Now, it really gets interesting here because research on Ghanaian immigrant couples specifically documents that it is precisely this shifting of gender roles that is identified as one of the most destabilizing forces in African immigrant relationship in the United States. Remember, it is not infidelity, it is not financial stress, but rather the renegotiation of who does what and who gets to decide what is the most destabilizing forces in African immigrant relationship in the United States. Think about it. Now, let me ask you something. When you move to a new country, perhaps a new world, do you still stay the same person? If you're being honest with yourself, the answer will be, of course not. Nobody does. And here's the proof. Recently, there's been a lot of community discussions on YouTube, TikTok, diaspora forums, and other social media networks that African men in America too are also choosing non-African partners at growing rates. Which means what we are actually watching is not a one-sided rejection. It is rather a two-way realignment. Yes. So basically, both sides are literally recalibrating. Both sides are navigating identities that America has reshaped for them. It doesn't end that. And both sides, if we are being honest, are even sometimes finding it easier to start fresh with someone who doesn't carry the same cultural weight, the same family expectation, or the same unspoken rulebook. The question is it sad? Maybe it is. But is it human? Completely. So I would say these women are not particularly lost. Neither are they westernized in some hollow, dismissive sense. But rather they are thinking hard about who they are, who they want to be, and what kind of partnership actually fits the life they are building. And you may ask, what about the men in this story? The African men who are wrestling with an America that seems to keep changing the rules. Well, many of them are thinking hard too. But the problem is not that these two groups can find their way to each other. No, that's not a problem. The real problem is that the conversation between them is happening everywhere except where it needs to happen the most, in the relationship itself. Now, this is the one thing I want you to hold on to. What we are calling as African women rejecting African men, that framing particularly is almost entirely wrong. What is actually happening is something far more specific and far more important. African women in America are refusing to carry two lives at once. And that is the life in America and the life that their home culture expected them to maintain. If their partners cannot or will not meet them in that in-between space, they move on. So to me, that is not rejection or betrayal. That is simply a woman who is educated, who is ambitious, and awake, making a choice that the world she now lives in gave her the power to make. Now, if this video made you think differently or even slightly about this conversation, share it with somebody who needs to hear it. Not to argue, but to understand. And also, drop your thoughts in the comment section. I'll see you in the next one.